Lovely little call. Welcome back to another episode of Comedians Discuss. We're joined back with Martin Ratton.
Hello.
Lonergan, and Don in the bottom corner. So yeah.
Hello.
How are we again? Good?
All good, yeah.
Yeah, pretty good, yeah.
We were just discussing off air about the level of books that Pope currently has behind him. No, Pope, it's brilliant because I feel like you could go and pick one of them off and just read me one, and I would listen to it for an hour. So
that's nice of you to say.
Pope, when do you have to return those books back to the library?
Yeah.
How many of those books are actually from the library? How are they yours?
No, they're all mine, mate. I binge buy books as well, and I flip between them, so I don't. It's very rare I actually get through a whole book, or if I do, I'll like pick it up and put it back again, put it back, and it's like that. But I mean, I said like I'm a fucking addict, so I once got addicted to books about the Hawaiian judicial system and binge bought loads of books on the Hawaiian judicial system, and that's not going to put me in good stead, that knowledge. Well, I don't need that knowledge, but there we go. Yeah, go on, Dom.
Talking about conspiracy theories here, Chelsea Gabbard, who's a part of the Hawaiian Jewish, well, she's I think the governor there or the senator there, so she's a bit of a conspiracy theorist, so it may come in handy. So
yeah, she's like a weird one. Like, isn't she still technically running for the Democratic nomination? Like, she hasn't. I don't think she's yet paused.
No, she hasn't.
Yeah, so she's still going. Like, what? Why is she still? I don't know. It's weird.
She's both left and right wing. She's a bit weird, but she's anti-corporation, but she's also mixes with libertarians.
Yeah, and she's anti-interventionist as well, which I really support. Like she's she's seen combat, she understands the atrocities of war, and so she's actually a bit of a dove with regards to interventionism, which is something I can support.
Yeah, but, anti-Monsanto as well.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Me and Chris are like, I still haven't read that book.
I'm like, it wasn't in my Bart Simpson's Guide to Life.
Oh mate, I used to love that book. I
got it back. Look, I managed to buy. I had this book when I was about 12, and I lost it in a house move when I was younger. So, but you know what? I'm going to buy it back off eBay. So I bought it back for a couple of quid, and it's just an absolute classic.
It is, mate. It's proper. I mean, fuck War and Peace. That was the book that provided the building blocks to my life. So
you say that the Simpsons predicted quite a lot. Apparently, Trump's presidency, so that book might be even more beneficial. It predicted apparently Tom Hanks getting coronavirus. I don't know about that one. So they talk about Simpsons and Family Guy predicting a lot. So
yeah. So we might actually. What does Bart's Guide to Life tell us about what's going to happen in the next 30 days of coronavirus? we really need the.
We need to know.
By the end of the show, I will tell you. I will find out exactly what that means. But I bought another book.
To the end. Let us know how it ends. Get to the end of that book.
This book arrived today. A concise history of the world by the Times, and. I was flicking through it, and there was no description or even mention about the history or anything of Antarctica. Got me thinking about what I'm going to... So what I did, Pope, hit me out. I went on Google Maps, and I searched as many square miles as I could for civilization. Couldn't find any. But if anyone's wanting to join me on searching grid reference PL65 with me next Tuesday, we will get to the bottom of this, because... I did see vegetation. I did see soil. I saw vegetation, and I may have seen some houses. So then I done digging. I thought, I've seen some houses, and there is actually a little city there, a little small town called Las Estrellas, which has a reasonably medium-sized population. So I thought, let's start there. And my quest is to find the lost city of Antarctica. We're going in with that.
I thought you was going to say my quest is to find a 3-bed semi on Rightmove.
Oh, we got someone watching for Mercy. Is it Bungu? Mercy Bungu. Hello, watching in South Africa. Oh, mate, we're going fucking international. This coronavirus has been wonderful for increasing my audience. So thank you, coronavirus.
Mercy, you are there's penguins in South Africa. If you go places like, I guess, Port Elizabeth, I think that's some penguins. So penguins have migrated from Antarctica to South Africa. So what's your opinion on the lost civilization of Antarctica?
Wait, what is the lost civilization of Antarctica?
So there is soil there and greenery there and fresh water there, and there was an expedition done there many times. I think the first one was like Captain James Cook.
Was it Scott? Was it Captain Scott who
Scott of the Antarctica? Yeah,
Scott of the Antarctica.
His boat's in Dundee, I think.
Yeah. Scott of the Antarctic, but he didn't ever make it to the end, so he's a failure. So I don't know why we're always banging on about him, mate. He actually turned back to save his men, so he was a noble failure, which but still a failure. So
the Nazis wanted to go there as well, so something's there. I just think it's up for discussion. That's all I'm saying. It's up for discussion.
I saw
it's
something
worth looking into. Go ahead.
Bird. That was the guy. If you're going to come in with a conspiracy, Chris, please get the correct admiral that did this. Show some respect.
Big Bird.
When Martin said Captain Birdseye, he wasn't that far off then, was he?
No, you laugh. It was spot on. I saw something once on a YouTube video. I'm sure it was to dispel the myth that the icebergs melting would cause us any problems whatsoever. And it was done in a pint of water where someone put some ice cubes into the pint so that the water went up to the top. They let the ice melt in the pint glass and it didn't overspill. And so they're like, yeah, it's fine.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking about water displacement. If the ice is already displaced within the water, yeah, that got me for a long period. Yeah.
So we're fine. Oh, I mean, we've solved it, mate. We've solved it. Global warming and the end of the world isn't going to happen from melting ice. How do you think it will happen? What do you think the end of the world will be?
I think that it's silly how we're like for the seas to rise, and we're like, why is that happening? Why can't we stop it? It's like you can't just. I mean, I guess if it's going to happen, if the ices are going to melt, and we're like, well, we have to put up walls and things to stop them. It's like you have to work with the water. You can't just be like, we're going to
I'll just do big old sips. If we all go to the edge of the waters and sip, if we all do one sip each and actually put the effort in, we might be able to solve this issue. Problem is, I get with like global warming and that. I understand what an urgent thing it is, and that we all need to focus and pay attention and disseminate that information as much as possible. But at the same time, every time I'm flicking through a magazine and I see something on global warming, I'm like, nah, hasn't caught me, mate. Hasn't caught me. I'm bored. It bores me, and it really shouldn't. But I get quite bored by global warming. Maybe so I don't understand it enough. I think that's the problem.
Be interesting to see after all this is kind of over, what effect that we've had by not doing all these things. You know, not driving around, not going on the trains, bigger things than that. But it must be such a difference to the planet, I guess, right now.
Well, they've already said, haven't they, in China? I don't know how they measure these things, but in China, they already said that the sort of levels of pollution and smog and stuff like that has been reduced, massively from coronavirus and from what's happening at the moment. But so end times is the subject today. What
Endgame? Yeah, it's the. Yeah. I guess it's the end.
Right, the end.
Yeah, I guess talking about things like I was researching today about the Mayan calendar and the 400-year back tunes and stuff like that, and just feeling about what did other civilizations think about was going to happen, and because 2020 was a big year for lots of things, and now it's got this big things happening. Is it a coincidence, or is it the fact that something behind it has been planned?
So what with the Mayan calendar? Can you explain that to me? So I don't know very much about it.
So I think it was in 400-year back tunes, going back to 5,000 year BC, and I guess that actually ended in 2012. So we've been without guidance for about 8 years now from the Mayans. But I guess there's loads of civilizations that I guess with with the at the end of the last, not this Baktun or the last Baktun, but I think the one before that, all the mines just disappeared. There was 20 million of them, and right at the point of the last Baktun, they kind of traced it back to the kind of constellation of the one that was facing the biggest temple at the time, which is the last one they fled. There was 20 million people, and they literally all left, and no one knew where they went. There was no wars accountable. There was no other population migration movements. They just vanished, and I just was so intrigued by what happened to 20 million people right at the end. Was it
pretty obvious, isn't it? They got the coronavirus, didn't they?
Yeah. Didn't they used to eat each other as well? There might just be one big fat one that was left. There was I know they used to cannibalize. They used to cannibalize each other. They used to eat each other, the Mayans.
A sacrifice every morning or every night. I think there was a sacrifice. If that didn't happen, the sun wouldn't rise. And then one day they must have just missed it out by accident and gone, "Oh, actually, it does rise." Oh, all right.
Yeah, it does. No, we really balls this one up. What would you if you had to eat part of your own body? What part would you eat?
Part of my own body?
Yeah.
Finger.
You'd go for the finger.
Easy done, isn't it?
I mean, my arsehole. My arsehole already looks like it's been chewed by a fox, and I wouldn't go near that. I think I would probably an earlobe. I think I'd go for the earlobe. I could do without an earlobe.
Elvis watching. We've got a real South African vibe happening today with our stream outreach with a lovely little South African touch. I'd eat the outside of my thigh. I think that's I think that's
that'd probably be a nice tasty part, I reckon. That'd
be the good part.
I'd probably eat my ear then. Earlobe again, maybe.
Yeah. It'd be
like the worst endgame ever. Just eating part of yourself.
Yeah. The worst apocalypse, just slowly consuming yourself until you're just a mouth. What's that? Isn't there a Beckett play actually called End Times where it's just a mouth talking? I think there's a Samuel Beckett play, and it's like just a mouth. Like when you see it on stage, it's just a spotlight focusing on these chattering mouths. Yeah. I think it is called like Endgame or End Times or something, which is weird.
I think I heard of that. Chris, what do you think happened to the mines then?
Well, I don't know what happened to 20 million people. I honestly, I tried to look at what happened. There's no evidence of any migration, no evidence, but it happened right at the end of the. I guess they were such masters at time.
There's a lot of sinkholes out there.
There is a lot of sinkholes out there. That's one place I'd like to go, South America.
They reckon that 2030 is also another year that things could happen as well, in terms of AI technology can be plugged into the human brain or something like that. But speaking about all these predictions in 2020, if you predict enough stuff, some of it's going to stick on the wall. If you throw enough shit on the wall, that's what they said about David Icke. So you got a lot wrong, but then he said something about 9/11 and Jimmy Savile. So sometimes it's just pot luck, mate.
Yeah. That's about Real London that's been going around with the David Icke interview. That's been pulled down. It's got to be. It's a really great interview, but there's a fine line between like giving information that could be, upsetting to some people and censoring free speech. You know what I mean? Like,
Chris, go on. Sorry.
No, go on.
I was going to say, for those who don't know the interview, basically David Icke says that COVID-19 doesn't exist. Basically, it's just genetic materials already within us. And if those cells within those genetic materials get poisoned, they release ozones. And that looks exactly like the same as COVID-19 under a microscope. So the reason what's happened in Lombardy in Italy and also Wuhan is they've got a lot of air pollution. Wow. Underlying health conditions as well might have caused it. Also, they reckon 5G, which can weaken the immune system. So basically, that's a summary of what David Icke says. And a lot of the deaths are maybe underlying health conditions, or they've transferred all the ammonia deaths. Like in Italy, a lot of people died of other conditions as well. So that's just a summary for anyone out there.
Yeah, it's the only problem with that is, so you had the doctor in Wuhan who was like about 32 or 34 who initially raised the alarm about this virus, and he didn't have any underlying health conditions that we health problems that we know of, but because he was on the front line of within hospital, he got bombarded with this virus, got such a huge dose of it that just killed him outright, which is now what's happening with a lot of frontline healthcare workers as it is. So I don't know. And the thing with David Icke is people, I mean, a lot of people sort of see him as a bit of a novelty and like a bit of a lunatic. But then he has got a platform and he has got a lot of people listening to him as well and taking what he says on face value. And at this moment in time, to disseminate that information, we should be listening to virologists and immunologists and stuff like that. It can be,
I'm doing research into it myself, so I don't know what to believe. I believe what the virologists say 100%, but I'm also taking a look into David Icke, and you're 100%. Anyone out there should look up to what the virologists should be saying. But it's also interesting to look into David Icke as well. But before you go on, Pope, does anyone reckon that they should have banned the YouTube video?
No. So my stance is I'm not one of these people who define their personality on fucking free speech arguments, but I'm a free speech absolutist. I even believe in the right to have hate speech and say hate speech. But if a consensus forms that you shouldn't be saying that and that it's dangerous, and people start to shut you down, then that, take heed of what they're saying. But I'm a free speech absolutist. I believe just basically say whatever, see what happens. That's my idea on it. That's actually right. Yeah, just
that's
say
his podcast, isn't it?
Yeah,
say whatever, see what happens.
And that's why whenever I'm doing these live streams, I'm like, it's like I'm planting the source of my own demise, because all over the place I'll say these little things on these live streams that I know at some point it's going to flare up and ruin me. But
it's the worst show reel in show business. I like Matt Holden's got a good comment about David Icke. Just 4 words: he is a lunatic.
Yes,
there you go.
I agree. That's how he is a lunatic, and he is someone that we can enjoy as like a fringe character. As a marginal figure, but then unfortunately there are some people who listen to what he has to say as if it's gospel. It might be you, Dom, but I think you're like a really intelligent guy who's just very interested.
Definitely
analyzing different things and looking at different perspectives, and that's like a wonderful way to be. So I wouldn't ever
100%.
Yeah,
we just need to do it.
If there's one thing that David Icke does, I guess he encourages people just to seek things for themselves. I mean, he does kind of lead you in a certain direction where he wants you to go, but it doesn't mean that someone who's interested in that even a tiny bit can go, do you know what, I'm just going to find out for myself. I'm just going to read some reports of is there a reason why certain countries have banned the progress of 5G being installed in their country? Is there there are some countries that get censored 100%, and they would give
China.
Yeah, well, yeah. So when things get taken down, it's like if they're taken down because they don't currently fit the agenda of what's going on now, then it's not good taste to do that. I understand there's implications to people being a little bit scared, and I guess the timing of him coming out and really forcing it when everyone's kind of attached to their mobiles and is a little bit unsettling. But I think he's never harmed anyone. He's just trying to tell people, So I quite like the guy, but I don't mean I'd listen to every one of his seminars.
No. I believe what he says in some of the stuff, and a lot of the stuff is a lot of bollocks. But the thing is, by banning him, you've created more publicity for him.
Yeah, and like David Simon, who wrote The Wire, when the guy who wrote The Wire, and he was a journalist and stuff, when he talked about no platforming and this current vogue for no platforming, he said just tactically, it's a bad idea, because you have to allow these people to air their viewpoint so that you can provide the opposite argument, or so that you can add a bit of Socratic interrogation to it and sort of dismantle what they're saying. And that's why it's good to hear people out, irregardless of what their view is, even if it's something. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, go on. Sorry, Pab, go on.
No, go on, mate. You carry on.
Sorry, I'm jumping in again. Sorry, I do apologise.
No,
I just want to say two things about David Icke. He says, do the research yourself. Don't believe me. Also, he says the biggest fear we have as humans is what other people think of us. So even if you believe something different, say it out loud and proud, yeah? But make sure you do the research first and that you can back it up. And also, he's anti-violence as well. So he's not condoning these 5G masks being like torn apart and stuff by the mob. So he's saying some good things in that respect. Don't just blindly believe him.
But masks are being burnt down from that, pretty much not from that interview, but it definitely added logs to the already burning fire of anxiety, where, you know, people are going out in the middle of the night and burning down what they think could be 5G masts, which they're currently hiding around the country in fake trees on the M1.
I used to go outside and whip daffodils with a belt when I was stressed. So we all need an outlet. We need a way to alleviate stress and feel leave an indelible mark on the world. And if you want to do that by arson, then so be it. Also, I once found a wheelchair in a dumpster and set a light to that with my friends when I was like 14, and the whole woodland in my area went up in flames. So and that was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it.
Can I ask you a question, Pope?
Yeah.
Where were you in January in Australia when the bushfire started? Were you in Australia?
I was.
You and your mates.
So what? I found a wheelchair in a skip. I set fire to it. And,
it wasn't a European one, then it wouldn't have gone up if it was a European made.
I agree with what you said, Chris, but just banning interviews is going to add more fuel. More people are going to get angry, and more people might burn more masks, which is silly anyway. But
also, when you were 14,
leave the interview there.
It was probably only WAP when you were 14, I'd imagine. You weren't doing anyone a favour.
That's what we need more information on. 5G is only dangerous if you. I guess the moderators put S, meaning we have to finish that subject. If you stay within 400 yards of it,
if you suck it off, if you suck off one of the masks, you're gonna probably cause yourself a bit of a mischief. But what is your conception of the apocalypse when you think of how? I think we've already covered this a little bit, but what's the end time scenario that you subscribe to the most?
Dogma.
What's that?
Dogma.
I'll go and explain your thinking.
I think we are our own demise. I think Stephen Hawking said before he passed away that we had 200 years to get off this planet. We are the virus that inhabits it, and not that I played it in a light that human beings are viruses, because we're not. But in terms of the concept of how we use this space that we live in, so I think we will be our own demise. Either we will be our own demise, or there'll be a virus that will be our demise, because there's so many things you can't throw money and bombs at, and that's a virus. I guess it is.
Do you know what? I actually think we are a virus. I want to return to this pre-lapsarian time before human beings existed. Like they said already, that they're seeing certain animals like dolphins return to the I don't know, the Japanese coast or something. And I'm already seeing foxes come out in the daytime. I want to return to that. I mean, I won't return to it because I'm a human and I'll be dead. But
if you want to go back in time, just go to Great Yarmouth, mate.
Oh, is it like that? Is that where you're from, Martin?
No.
Oh, you're not.
No. I've been feeding what I thought was a family of foxes for the last 2 weeks, and it turns out I've been hand rearing a pack of rats. You know what? I love them.
I actually, weird you should say that, because that was when I came to Hastings for the wonderful Hastings Fringe Festival. I know. We're not. Unfortunately, it won't be here this June as we would have loved. But yeah, when I first went there, the only observation I made was that Hastings has got a hell of a lot of foxes in it. No. And I noticed there being lots of foxes in Hastings. I don't know why, but
and apparently like 400,000 seagulls. I think that's the number, but I don't know where do 400,000 seagulls go at night. That's what I want to know.
Yeah, and Matt Holden said that Japan is the most unsafe. Oh yes, don't they hunt dolphins? Is that why, Matt?
Yeah.
Oh no, they Anyway, I can't remember where it was then. I don't know.
It's that kind of not Fijian island. There's an island, isn't there, where they kind of coax them all into the bay and I want to say
into the bay.
Yeah. Coax them into the swimming pool and harpoon them.
But realistically, I reckon we've got about 100 years left until we need a massive overhaul in infrastructure, in the way we have renewable energies, the way we harvest food, the way we manage resources, the government. I think we're going to need a kickstart a revolution. I don't want to start it in a stream 25 minutes in, but I feel like that there is some changes that are beyond policy that we need to start. Really,
but don't you? Yeah, I get what you're saying, because I always think policy drives the change, but I also think there's a mindset and a way of thinking and a way of viewing a life that we need a kind of renaissance in the way we're thinking. And maybe I don't know I
don't think policy is just enough. I think what we need to do, as I discussed last week, is we need revolution, like what the French are doing when they're protesting.
Do you think? Do you believe it? Say, do you believe in non-violent revolution, or do you think?
I think it happened in India with Gandhi. I believe personally in non-violent revolution, but there was a comedian called Jeremy Hardy who said the last time that it succeeded, a revolution here was the poll tax riots, and unfortunately that was violence. But I'm non-violent.
I've got just the person that can answer this question, and he's waiting backstage. Let's bring in Jed, and let's fire this question at Jed straight away when he comes in.
Okay. Hello, Jed.
Hey.
Hi, Jed.
You all hear me?
Oh,
Yeah.
we can hear you. It sounds like a train's just gone by.
Oh, I don't know what that is.
So I think I interrupted the thing you were saying just to I thought I needed to bring you in on that, but I'm
down for it. Let's throw down. Who is fighting?
We can just about right. Just about hear you, Jed. If you can just speak up a little, that'd be great. We're talking about politics. That's the word. That's the new word for it. Politics.
Do you know what politics means? It stands for many blood-sucking animals. According to David Icke. Many, and ticks, blood-sucking.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think we'll ever get there as a change, though? Because you know, like part of it, just like.
Fuck off, Mum. Get out. Fuck off, Mum. Get the fuck out.
Hello.
Mum, get off. Fuck off.
Finally, some sensible answers in this podcast.
Yeah. You know what this reminds me of? Remember last year they had that BBC reporter and his kids came in.
Yeah. I think my mum knew this was going on. She's just got a pathological need for attention. So
don't worry, my mum will come along soon anyway. So the same will happen in about 10 minutes.
That's good. We'd love to have your mum on the stream here. So I
thought you said you just love to have my mum.
I would fucking love to have your mum.
The thing is, Pope, Brendan Burns has done this joke. You're 28 years old. My mum's in her 70s. That would be a result from my mum. So my mum's done well there.
That's fine. I've got a lot of experience with older ladies. So,
this has turned into cougar chat, hasn't it?
Yeah.
But that's the thing. Do you think we'll ever get there? Because like every generation is smarter than the last, yeah. Because otherwise we'd still be like rubbing stones together to try and make a fire. But we've only just got to a point where we created industries run off, bad energy, bad fuel, but we're only just getting to a point where we understand the problems we're causing, and we're only just getting to a point of, you know, science to be able to use other stuff. So it's almost like it's never within our control in our lifespan to ever change things. We just got to always pass it on to the next.
True.
I mean, heckled by your mum. If you night, mum. Even if you take something like the solar panel. I mean, the solar panel was actually invented, I think it was 1932, if you have a little Google on that. So how can something like the solar panel or like the car and the engine not change fundamentally in over, say, like coming up to 100 years in terms of it hasn't impacted? There's been no forward development of like the next stage. There should be solar panels on every single building all around the world.
It should be,
There should be a different type of engine. It's like when you see things like Shell now and Texaco and they're saying things like, we're changing to electric. Oh no, sorry, you weren't there when we needed you, and now you've got to change. You're like, we're going electric. They'll have these big old boosters that you'll pull into a petrol station. You'll pay £5 and they'll boost your engine and your thingy. But they weren't into that. They've always been against that. But how can they just suddenly jump on the bandwagon and start going, we're going to have electric pumps now? No, well, we've been waiting for this for at least 40 years, and you've not even been able to, you know, they're so stuck in the way of just getting oil out the ground. I think until that goes, until the last drop is gone, we will never move forward until that last drop.
I think that is where like intersecting corporate interests stymie any potential for change and for progression. And I think that will always be the case, and that's why either you decide to compromise, which someone like Al Gore is trying to do with regards to climate change by trying to work within the political, the existing political infrastructure, or you have what Don was saying, which is revolution and complete overhaul and complete scorched earth, so that we can have a period of restoration, which I'm all for. I quite like a bit of violence. I believe in violent overthrow. I'm a bit of a defiant person, a bit of a rabble rouser. I've been glassed like 7 times. I've been glassed by like seven times and got a
6 times by your mum.
My mum, yeah. My mum once accidentally gave my brother a bloody nose, but he was asking for it.
Can I just say one thing, Chris? I don't think the problem is the rest of Europe. You look at Germany, they're looking into more renewable energy. I think the big problem is America and Britain. I mean, in America, Bernie Sanders has just resigned from the Democratic nomination, and he was our hope of a better society. So I think America and Britain have become more neoliberal, capitalist, where we help the corporations.
Yeah. I think we're just kind of returning to a period we were in with the rise of Tony Blair and back to the 90s, especially with Keir Starmer. To me, he just seems like a prototypical neoliberal,
Exactly.
New Labour politician, but I don't know. We'll wait and see. It's too early doors to.
Did you hear that Mexico's building a city in the rainforest? Did you see that? But it's going to be.
I never heard that. No.
It's going to be a complete eco city with no cars, no oil, no nothing.
Wow!
I think if you
on top of 20 million miles.
Yeah.
Oh, it's good then. Yeah, so that's positive. I guess someone with a regime like Mexico and their kind of infrastructure, they're willing to at least consider coming out of this. I think Amsterdam may have actually released an article. Amsterdam was in the government of Amsterdam, and they released an article saying about they're going to have some changes within their environmental policies. I guess they've seen things like, you know, the canals get a bit cleaner, and they've seen like you were saying before about. I think there was some cities in India that could finally see the Himalayas for the first time in 40 years, which is something you're not going to want to go back to. Like if you can see a mountain range, and then all of a sudden the factories start up and you can't see it again, it's like the treat has been taken from your mouth.
Yeah.
You know? So
Yeah, you need a slight exposure to the beatific, to this natural beauty again. But the problem is Bolsonaro, is it Bolsonaro, the Brazilian president or prime minister, I can't remember. He is so intent on the deforestation of the rainforest, and unless he reverses that policy, which he won't at all, because he is not a green person, I don't see how we can ever reverse what is already happening here. You know.
I think we will continue to elect Bolsonaro and people like that, and have Keir Starmer. We cannot have Keir Starmer's opposition or people like in the middle, because people still elect right-wing populists like Bolsonaro. If you want to, we need a left-wing populist who can help really solve poverty. So
do you reckon, so you think you need to fight populism with populism?
Yeah, well, not probably. Yeah, or just a greater redistribution of wealth. It doesn't even. It's not even left-wing populism. It's centrism in most other European countries.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I mean, is that like you look at the sort of Scandinavian model? What's happening in Germany? What's happening in Denmark? Yeah, I think that's the problem. Is whoever's like recapturing the narrative, and it's the same way that Trump talks about anything that might be considered community spirited or collectivist as this nefarious thing of socialism, which people conflate with communism. I mean, like we know, socialism is a very nebulous term anyway. There's no real clear definition for what it means anyway. And if
it's just democratic socialism. It's just a little bit less capitalist.
Yeah, exactly. And I can, I'm on board with a lot of that. So there's other end times scenarios that I was looking into. So I read this amazing book about ISIS, and ISIS, who are they're Salafi Muslims, and they're a bit of a death cult. But the reason they're a bit of a death cult is because they're a distinctive variety of Islam, where ISIS considers themselves a harbinger of, or a headline player in the imminent end of the world, and that they want to actually expedite this end times clash of civilizations scenario, so that they can defeat Western imperialist values and implement their own medieval kind of religion apocalypticism. And I think I'm all for it. Are you guys?
What people fail to kind of understand, though, is that thing that, like, countries have invaded other countries, policies and that changes like all the time. Like there's always like something happening. If you look back in like the Middle East and the Ottoman Empire, and before that you got like the Persian. It's like people are kind of concerned when things change, but things change all the time. I guess people aren't kind of. I guess as a short period of time, there's like 100 years is nothing. But if you look at like empires changing, populations, migration, European migration the whole world's moving, but yet we put up these barriers and we get ourselves all worked up when people try and cross this imaginary line that we made. It's like, you can't cross that piece of land. Why? I'm all for kind of mass movement of people, as long as it's kind of,
aren't we currently living in the longest period of peacetime in Europe?
I guess so.
Probably, yeah. I reckon so.
I think we're currently in it now. And that's crazy. Like you say, there's always something going on. We've just been very lucky in some ways that we haven't been part of anything.
I think it's because of the creation of nuclear weapons, in that we know if there was a third world war, it would either be fought online in like closing down the electrical grid of a country and stuff like that, or if it was a hot war, it would be the end. It'd basically be the end. Everyone would fire off their nuclear arms and their nuclear arsenal. Exactly that. Yeah, it's that type of brinkmanship ensures that we would never be in that situation, because
it's kind of that mutually agreed destruction is kind of like in the schoolyard where someone kicks you in the shin, you got to go, I've got to kick you back now, that's the rule. That's exactly what it is. It's game theory, and that kind of
brinkmanship is, yeah, I think that's why we're probably in this period, the period of peacetime, because of nuclear weapons.
Yeah, definitely.
In terms of like the end game, I think people don't realize, I guess prior to 1914 there wasn't really any scope that there'd be a world war. It happened again. I mean, if you look at 1939, Adolf Hitler was on the front of Times magazine as Man of the Year because of his policies were so, progressive. So I think people don't realize that if, say, China teamed up with Russia and North Korea, it would probably be over. I don't think it feels like we're right on the edge in the possibility of all it takes is a couple of phone calls and countries start getting invaded again. It's like, well, what are you gonna? It's like when Russia invaded Ukraine. It's like they were just like, well, we're doing it. When we went in Crimea, sorry, it's like, well, we're just doing it. It's like, well, you can't do that. We've just done it. We've literally just done it. We've just done it.
Yeah.
What now? And people are like, well, you shouldn't have done that. Well, what are you going to do? And that over a period of time may continue. People go, I'm going to start land grabbing. I'm going to start, one half of Papua New Guinea goes to the other half of Papua New Guinea. First of all, that's how it starts.
It's like I believe, like I get as an addict, I sometimes get enticed by the annihilatory function of bad life choices, and this idea of just doing it. Like I remember when I was traveling on a National Express coach, and I saw an unaccompanied baby, and I just thought, I'm going to nick that. And because it was my thinking, well, I wouldn't do any harm to it. I'd just like walk it around the block for 5 minutes. But there was that thought in my mind, like, even if I did that, just nick that baby and then came back to the parents and was like, oh, sorry, I was just trying something. It's still like, it ruined your life completely. It like absolutely destroy your life. But that's because I'm a rational actor, and there was that part of my mind that was preventing me from doing such a silly thing as stealing a baby for a bit. But if you're not a rational actor and you're in control of nuclear weapons, you could just fire them off. We don't know about it. Look at Donald Trump. Donald Trump is definitely a pathological narcissist. He is a maladapted human being. He 100% is. Somewhere along the way, he is undeveloped mentally, and he is in control of the second biggest nuclear arsenal in the entire world.
Yeah. And the problem I find with most, go on, sorry.
No, go on, Don, mate. I was
going to say, the problem I find with most narcissists is they never talk about me.
What do you reckon the process is to actually firing a nuke? Is the process literally just Donald Trump going, I don't particularly like Canada, it's got to go? What are the processes?
No, that actually is so you don't have to get congressional approval, because the whole point is, if you're in that position to have to fire a nuclear weapon, there's an urgency to it. You want to be able to do it as quickly as possible. So all it is this thing called the nuclear football, is that there's one person who walks around with Donald Trump at all times who has a suitcase containing the nuclear codes, and Donald Trump has access to that suitcase, sends a signal to so it's basically Donald Trump and one other guy who can enter the nuclear digits and then fire a code. It sounds like that sounds really simplistic, and it sounds like, oh no, surely there's a bit of a buffer in between that process, but there really isn't. It's supposed to be.
Where does that guy take him at night once he clocks off?
What, the nuclear football?
Yeah, he locks it in the cupboard at work.
I think so. Yeah, it just bungs it behind the bed.
I went to go check. I was in I think it's Europe's last ever surviving nuclear Russian submarine, and I was in it 4 or 5 weeks ago. I was in Estonia. And
Estonia,
I went to what is the capital of Estonia?
Tallinn.
Tallinn. Sorry, And if you walk there, there's a prison not too far from where the town is, and there's a nuclear submarine. And I got inside it, and I'm thinking, did the Russians realise that in like 40 years' time, after the height of the Cold War, that just some bald British guy with a cornetto be sitting in a missile, just sitting there going, this is all right, this, isn't it? Go on.
What flavour cornetto was it?
What flavour cornetto was it?
Listen, always strawberry. It's always strawberry.
Oh.
Always.
Fair
There's
enough.
always in my house. There's always two things in my house: a cornetto and a mint viennetta. Always.
Ah, nice.
Do you reckon if
I
Donald Trump doesn't get the right flavour cornetto, he'll press the nuclear codes?
Probably,
He's just getting really
yeah.
pissed off.
probably.
He's that type of petulance.
Yeah. I went to Tallinn and I bought a knife from a Nazi. I went into a second-hand shop and I saw a swastika and I thought that's a bit weird that they've kind of got that on sale, but it's like a relic from the war. Some people are interested in that stuff. And then turn around and there was a big fuck off Nazi drape and the proper Nazi uniform. And then I realised, oh no, it's a big Nazi shop. There's Nazi stuff everywhere. I felt like because he was like sort of eyeing me up and I was getting a bit worried that he thought I was being rude for browsing. So I thought, I'll have to buy something. So I bought this little matchbox where I'll show you here, which happens to have Hitler on it. And then I bought a knife to carry around with me. And go on, mate. Go on.
I found in a boot sale last summer a World War I Lee Enfield bayonet.
Ah, mate, yes.
Wow.
It's a real World War I. And I kind of approached this old boy and was like, in proper British fashion, I was like, how much for that? How much for that Lee Enfield Mark III bayonet, mate? He was so impressed that I knew what it was, and he was like, "Well, give us £5." I went, done, and walked around this.
Oh, yes, mate.
Walked down this boot sale with this kind of bayonet over my shoulder. No one batted an eyelid because everyone was focused on a bargain, and I walked away with it.
I bought that knife, but then I realised I couldn't get it through customs, so I stashed it in this little fruit and veg cart thing, not realising that was outside a government building. Yeah. But when my friend went back over there, I tried to get them to look to check the knife was still there because I was going to get a package holiday to go visit the knife because I didn't like the thought of the fact it was left on its own, but it wasn't there. It wasn't there anymore when she went and checked. It had gone, the knife. So probably a kid got hold of it and killed his mate. So
I got a little.
Well, we've got some good news for you. We've reunited you with the knife. He's live on air at the moment.
Yeah.
With the knife. This is your knife.
This is your knife.
Oh, this is your knife.
Okay.
I got another surprise for you guys. Martin wasn't here last week, but there was a gentleman that came on stream called Nick. And he was from Ohio, and he said that he's having a terrible time because his wife had shaved his head and shaved his beard because of the theory that it could contain coronavirus. And I got him backstage, and we're going to bring him in 1 second, and then we're going to say hi to Nick. And anyone, if you want to ask him questions about what's going on stateside, he's our reporter, and we've stashed him in Cleveland, Ohio. So let's bring in Nick if he's ready, and then we'll. Here we go.
Yeah, Nick's a very handsome man. I'm worried about how the rest of us look in comparison to Nick.
Don't worry about it.
I look like an unloaded PlayStation 1 character that hasn't rendered.
I don't mean to get dark, but Nick's the only one there. Everyone else in America's dead.
Yeah. The last man standing, Nick.
Nick, what's happening? Nick? What's happening?
How's it going over there, guys?
Yeah, it's going all right at the moment. Yeah. I mean, I think we're we're apparently on course to being the most infected country in Europe. So that's a fun thing. That's a fun bit of information. Yeah.
Actually, we left Europe already, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. From what I can tell, the numbers here aren't too great either. So, I think Pennsylvania is the state that we used to live in, and they're at 4 times what Ohio is now as of today.
Jesus.
So, yeah. It just keeps going up.
Is the country shut down at all? Are people still going from state to state, or is it lockdown now?
It's not like a mandatory lockdown. They're still doing the, social distancing and stuff like that. And some cities are a little stricter than others, but it's not like a national lockdown now. So kind of defeats the purpose if you have, 40 states who are practicing being locked down, and then the others aren't. So
I had all internal flights still happening then at the moment.
That I'm not sure. I think there's still flights going back and forth, but I think they're more of like a necessity basis,
Yes, I spoke to Ari Shafir the other day, and he said it is very much state by state decisions over there, whereas here it's kind of implemented. It's a nationwide thing where they don't really do it, but county by county or anything like that. But how do you feel about Trump's handling of the coronavirus? Have you got any thoughts?
That's a good question.
Yeah, I don't really. I don't think he's doing such a great job, to be honest. So far, it just seems like he's doing everything he can to avoid responsibility. So he says every day it's on the states. The states have the power to decide what they want to do. I think that's just his way of releasing any liability.
Yeah, of course. No, definitely. I completely agree. I think we were saying the problem with a personality like Trump is he is, I think, a pathological narcissist, and so he is going to do whatever he can to satiate his own ego, and this is a crisis that leading in the election year he really doesn't want to tarnish his name with, so he'll do whatever he can to, like you say, pass on responsibility. But how do you feel?
Second question, Sir God, can I ask a quick question? Sorry, do you think Trump will win the election, or do you think Biden can beat him?
I'm pretty sure he's gonna win again. Unfortunately,
that's what I think as well.
Yeah. Most politicians, when they're going through crisis, tend to stick with who they've got to kind of get, apart from Neville Chamberlain in World War II. But apart from that, they tend to stick with who they've got to get him through this grief. So I think that he will do another term, and then he will.
Biden's such a weak candidate.
Yeah,
and also Biden's such a weak candidate for me. So.
I agree. I think Biden, every time I watch Biden, I'm always worried about what else in his face is going to fall off, like an old ventriloquist dummy or something. I keep thinking an eyebrow, an eyelid, they're all just going to start falling off. Not just because he's old, it's because Bernie Sanders was an old man, but he seemed to have a lot more vitality, and
exactly.
He seemed to be a lot more of a bracing figure, whereas Biden, I'm almost certain Biden has dementia.
That's what they say, but they're keeping it, hiding it. But the problem with the coronavirus is affected Joe Biden the most, because he hasn't been able to be as much as touchy and feely as he wanted to be. So
exactly. Well, that's been positive for them.
But I heard about the dementia as well. So they're covering that up apparently.
So to our American correspondent, when it came to the Democratic race, was there anyone that you was rooting for initially, or?
Well, you're a Republican.
Oh. He's a Democrat. I can see it. He's a Democrat.
Yeah. Can you hear us?
Oh, I don't know if he can hear us. Nick, can you hear us? We've been intercepted. The Russians have intercepted.
Yeah.
We knew this would happen. We've lost contact with Nick, guys, but so he's gone.
He's a great team. What a nice, chilled out guy. What a lovely guy. He had a good. I hope we can get Nick back as our American correspondent. It was really actually.
Yeah, if anyone watching wants to be a correspondent from where you are, then we'll more than happy get you on in the weeks to come to have a chat about what's going on where you are. So like South Africa, and I think we saw Zimbabwe a bit earlier. Nigeria we saw. So feel free to message in, get involved, drop us a message, and we'll get you on for sure. So we'll get Nick back on at some point. Yeah.
So someone just NSA. Someone said NSA. Have we got any thoughts on NSA? What is NSA? Is it the people?
National Security Agency of America, isn't it? So it's like our. What's our version of it? What's the one? It's GCHQ. GCHQ.
Oh of course, yeah.
And
Snowden, I was going to say it's the one Snowden uncovered. He used to work for him, didn't he?
Yeah, he said it was
for the CIA.
Yeah.
Snowden used to work for the CIA, I thought. But apparently, if you type the word Illuminati backwards in the Google, it comes up with the NSA website.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Wow.
so if you try, I've tried that a few times, it's worked, but I'm not sure if it does it now. But
so how do you
maybe.
feel about the mass surveillance of the populace? Are you for or against it?
Against. You have to be against,
Against
people being tracked regardless. I mean, I had this heated conversation at a house party a few months back when someone was talking about them wanting to be chipped, and I said, well, why? I said, well, so then it's 100% accountability. And I was like, but you haven't done anything wrong. It's like, well, if I haven't done anything wrong, there's nothing to hide. And it's like, you can't have that type of thought, that type of language. You can't say, you know, if someone burgled your house, you'll know where they are. So then those levels. I mean, although apart from being chipped, we are being tracked. I mean, they know what we buy, when we buy it, what food we buy, what our interests are, what our trends are. That data is being sent to loads of people. Like, I remember when Xbox first came out, and they wanted to.
We got Nick back.
Yeah.
Nick.
I'm back.
He's back.
Xbox wanted to use the Connect piece to see whether you were looking at the screen so that they could show you adverts. Like if you was a bearded man, they would show you things like Gillette, and if you was watching the advert, then you might find something comes to the post that says like £5 off Gillette razors because the camera knew that you had a beard, so it was using that data to sell to people, so they get 100% of accurate responses to give people, rather than send out an advert on, like, say on Facebook you do a boost post and you put like male, female, this area. They can go, I mean, Martin's probably more knowledgeable than this than me in terms of data, but they get right down to like whether you wear glasses so that they can send you things that might interest you just on using your phone and using your Xbox, which is why everyone's covering up their Connect.
Drill down pretty far. It's amazing what you give up, you know, on Facebook and what they not use against you, but what you can use for that kind of thing. And like you say about the tracking, we're probably already giving it away, I'm sure.
Yeah,
if the government
definitely
want it, they can just grab it, I'm sure.
Yeah, what data levels, Martin, do you think that they're kind of picking up, and how far down these data points? And I think if say someone like Johnson & Johnson wanted to know how many of the population had a baby, they could pretty much look at what you buy on your credit card or your card to see if you're buying baby products. And then Johnson & Johnson will say to that individual collect that data, I will give you 50 cents or 50 pence for every email address for everyone you've got. So they go, okay, we'll have £5 billion worth, please. And they get all of them. Is that
can I ask you a question, guys, quickly? Chris, do you have kids?
No.
Pope, do you have kids?
No.
What we should all do is start buying baby products so we can fuck off Johnson.
Yeah.
Doing their algorithms, yeah? So I'm just going to go afterwards and buy some fucking nappies, yeah?
Yeah. But
also, I can't be asked. I go to the toilet.
I always try and do stuff like that to try and like manipulate and trip up the algorithms anyway. But I just to play devil's advocate for a moment, like I actually don't give a shit if all my data is harvested. Like it feels a bit creepy. It's like a dystopic future, this encroachment of a technology that can preempt what you're thinking, etc., etc. But I don't really care. Like, it doesn't bother me. It really doesn't bother me in the slightest. There's not any part of it that I worry about.
But the thing is, you won't worry about tomorrow. Something that can seem normal today could be seen as a crime tomorrow. So, for example, if you speak out against your local council, that's the thing. So it might be okay today, but tomorrow it might be a crime.
And also, I'm probably coming from a position, you know, being a white male, I'm coming from a position of privilege where I have the privilege of not worrying about police intervention in my life, and also police intervention in my life because I live with a detective inspector. So the pigs are already out there, mate. The pigs are right through that door. But yeah, it's not something other than there is a slight eeriness and a slight uncanniness to computers, to this data harvesting and micro targeting and stuff like that. It doesn't really bother me too much.
I'm pretty happy that I'm 32 years old and there isn't a dick pic on the internet of me wherever you look on the internet. What there is a single Polaroid somewhere.
There's a video of me getting my dick sucked out there, but I made sure that the lighting was like beautiful chiaroscuro lighting, so that the dick vein looks very nice. The dick looks quite big. If ever I film this stuff or take a photo of my penis, I just make sure it looks really like a really lovely penis, and so I don't mind it being out there.
Do you use Snapchat filters?
For me,
yeah, exactly. I put some bunny ears on there, and
That's the worst ending to Black Mirror ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think as far as like the info sharing and stuff like that here, I watched a podcast where Joe Rogan talked to Snowden, I think it was, and he went into like exactly how deep the information they get goes. Even as far as if you have an iPhone and your phone is turned off, they can still tell exactly where you are and what you're doing.
That's pretty mad.
Yeah.
I think that's why what I've learned from stuff like we have an English show called Line of Duty, which is just a detective show. I think the thing I've learned from that is just, if you're going to do a big old crime, just leave your phone at home. Just don't take your phone with you. I think that because it pings off the cell towers, doesn't it? And they can pick up. They can. They triangulate and they can work out where you are. But that's why I always try and. Maggie Irving said a really lovely penis. If there is a video out there of me getting sucked off, and it's I mean, she put it out there. It wasn't me. I wouldn't ever do that to someone.
Was it old pixelation or new 4K phones? Because I'm worried about the smoothness of a 4K video of it.
It's pretty smooth. You can see all the lumps and bumps. A hand shaven. I've got a real bush down there. But for what it was quite nice. And she put the video out there, and I'm fine with that. I believe in a life of complete transparency, unless you are doing a big murder, in which case best to cover that up. Don't
start getting adverts for Gillette then, won't you? If it's unshaven.
Yeah. if you're doing a murder, don't put a Snapchat filter on it. put out little bunny ears. Don't make it a bit cheeky and put it out there. Just cover that up.
They will make things like crime and murder like so difficult to do that what are people's going to like? There'll never be a society about murder. But if you look at like films like The Minority Report, where they look at like people's early disposition to things, and I reckon they'll be arresting people before crimes happen in the next 20 years. Right. Next 20 years, I reckon they'll be arresting people based on. Well, you had this rant with Sandra on Facebook, then you bought a knife from eBay. We're going to assume that you're going to kill her, so we're going to arrest you 3 weeks from. Like, you know what I mean?
We're going to say
precogs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But isn't there a way, because you can have? Can't you already get arrested for a conspiracy to murder? So you can't. That's isn't that the same kind of thing? Wouldn't that be the evidence that they use to support that theory? Because I think a lot of this stuff, like with any crime, it is to them in that moment, it is just a theory that they're just having to find the evidence to support.
Or they're going to go, Don, you look like a terrorist.
Yeah.
There's a show here called Tiger King where I guess I haven't seen it yet, but from what I hear, the guy Joe Exotic gets 22 years for conspiracy to kill. So he hasn't actually done it yet, but still gets 22 years. Of course, our president, who won't let the nation's doctors speak on medication that should be taken by the people, entertains the question from a reporter during a coronavirus briefing on whether or not Joe Exotic should be fucking pardoned.
Oh yeah, I saw that. I know, I saw that. This is where it's madness, isn't it? It's like
ridiculous.
He is just what he's always been, just a reality TV show president, and any opportunity he can to divert away from the real world issues, he'll take it and snap it out. What's the other thing I read? Oh, isn't he like talking about? Didn't he like re-divert some funds to do some drilling on the moon or something? I don't know how. I read that there was
Space Force 2020.
It wouldn't surprise me if he wanted to put his face on Mount Rushmore at some point in the next.
Amazing. Yeah, that'd be
That's
good.
what the project is. He's going to have the moon carved into a bust of him.
Yeah.
Such a narcissist.
I think it could be. He has to be the last president, and there has to be a new type of politics come out of this, because he doesn't represent all of Americans or all of politics, but there has to be a point where they go, do we need, like when Joe Rogan says, do we kind of need one guy doing all this? Like, this has gone on now since the 1750s. Do we need, when there was probably about 20,000 of us, now there's like 500 million. Should we just get like a whole, Congress of people to make this rather than just one guy? Like, we should have 3 precogs.
But that is the idea of the American system, isn't it? It's the division of power, and Congress is supposed to be there to put restraints on what Donald Trump is doing. But exactly. But this is where now people are seeing how the system is failing, because when they wrote the Constitution, it was for this type of character, this type of person, and Congress with the Republican Party, they've all, apart from maybe Mitt Romney, they've all kind of lined up behind him and are just given him absolute leeway. And people are now seeing the flaws in the system in the same way that the flaws of our parliamentary system became very, very apparent, how labyrinthine they are and how ineffectual they are for something like Brexit, because of how long it took and how convoluted the process was to get that ahead. We saw it became very apparent that it's a flawed system, which I think America will do the same now, start to reevaluate their system of governance. But
we need a proportional representation so it doesn't give one party too much power like Europe.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think they do that in Iceland as well. I completely agree with that. I think that would be, but I think as well, it's like with the president in America, it's almost like they've become a royal figurehead. It's almost like they've become a royalty. Yeah. They've become like a royal figure. But Can I
ask? Do you reckon that Silicon Valley has too much power? Because if we get rid of presidents, companies will swoop in, and Silicon have got AI, 5G, and stuff. They've got a lot of immense power.
Yeah. I think they're. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. They're kind of
technocracy.
Technocracy in their own right. And like you said, the Facebook and stuff like that, it's the biggest. I can't think of the word. It's the biggest disseminator of information that's ever existed. And if it's wielded in the wrong way, Mark Zuckerberg, has an enormous amount of power at his disposal with that.
And also, can I just ask a quick question? Can I ask the American person, is there anyone doing any good in America with the coronavirus? Is there any good people come out of this?
This is America. There are no good people. What do you mean?
There's you, Nick. You're a good man. You're
a good man.
The only one left. Everyone else is dead.
Yeah.
It's like if we look out the window now, we'll see Cillian Murphy just walking the streets.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, we have, Dr. Fauci, but he's looking at getting fired anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
We'll have him. I'll have him. We'll have a trade of guys. This has been super fun. Still, again, this has been our third one, Nick, and we're glad to have you down on our Endgame version of this. And it's just great to hang out and just like if you're watching this and you think we are just 5 guys chatting rubbish, we are.
Right? We are. Wait, speak for yourself, mate. Look at them books. I'll read, boy. I'll do a bit of reading. But that's just a wallpaper. That's just
I did promise at the end that I would get some sort of knowledge from just to highlight that the Bart Simpson's Guide to Life is a book of prophecy and not of children's capacity.
Yeah, so tell us what's happening in coronavirus according to Bart's Guide to Life. What is happening in the next?
Found one straight away. Pop in, okay?
Yeah.
Frogs also make excellent cough suppressants. To get rid of a cough, put a live frog in your mouth, then release it. Repeat 3 times. The cough should disappear. Right?
Perfect.
And that's fair. Right?
That's Bart Simpson, mate. That's Bart Simpson. He's been alive for ages. Frogs. If you've got coronavirus, just pop a frog in the mouth. We sorted it.
1998. 1998.
Never a true word spoken. There we go.
What's the top of the arse? Now put a frog in your mouth or something.
Guys,
that's the new phrase.
I'm off to go find myself a frog.
Yeah.
Nick, thanks for dropping in, Nick.
Thanks, Nick.
Thank you,
Thanks
Nick.
for having me, guys.
And Martin as well. Thank you, guys. And
Thanks, everyone.
And take care of yourselves, and I'll see you again next week, hopefully.
Cheers, guys. See you later.
Yes, guys, thank you.